Good afternoon. I'm Stuart Lilly, the Director of Interpretation at Fort Ticonderoga. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about clothing. Here for the fort, we make pretty much all the clothing we wear, and as part of making it, we hand finish it. So I thought I might take a moment to show you all about some of the hand finishing we do on garments. This waistcoat here is one that I'm working on for one of our staff members. It's a buff waistcoat, or buff wool waistcoat. It's relatively conservative in cut. It's probably a good 1750s styled waistcoat, but you do see these sticking around a little bit later into the 70s, and if not 80s on some older gentlemen. The way you can tell is the relatively high placement of the waist relative to the length of skirts, as well as the straight line of the skirts. Later waistcoats tend to cut away more. What does seem to be pretty consistent from period to period is going to be the actual spacing of the buttons. You'll notice that there's about 2 inches between buttons, and that seems to be the most common proportion. You'll also notice that the buttonhole itself is a good bit longer than the width of the button. These buttonholes are extremely narrow in the 17th century and then get progressively wider and wider through the 18th century, peaking in the 1770s at about 2.5 times the width of the button itself. Now, in terms of the actual buttonhole construction, you'll go ahead and note here we've got a finished buttonhole, bar tacks on either end. Only a small portion of the buttonhole is actually cut. We notice the basting stitches for the interfacing. Now, when I go ahead to make one, the first step I'm going to do is to go ahead and lay in the cording. This will be what sort of pushes the buttonhole stitches out. Now, this cording is also going to mark out for me the line on which I'm going to go ahead and stitch this buttonhole. Once I've laid these 2 lines of thread out, I go into this buttonhole. Now, it's a common misconception that on a buttonhole you're just doing what people think of as a blanket stitch. Well, the buttonhole stitch is a little bit different. It's actually a purl stitch. So every time I make a stitch, I'm actually going to wrap not just once, like in a blanket stitch, but twice for a full buttonhole stitch. And then I pull tight. The other thing that you'll find on original 18th century garments is typically the quality of the buttonholes, even on relatively common clothing, is going to be pretty exceptionally high. At the end of the buttonhole, what you really should finish it off with is going to be what's called a bar tack. And a bar tack is pretty darn simple. You just go ahead and put in a couple loops of thread. Doesn't need to be much. And then go ahead and blanket stitch over these. And that will just secure the edges. A lot of people try to do 19th century buttonholes, where down here they sort of make those purl stitches of the buttonhole loop their way around. What you really want to do is make sure to end it with the bar tack on either end. So just to finish it off, I'll just keep doing those stitches. And then go right back into my buttonhole stitching. And a couple more minutes and this thing will be done. Luckily I got about 5 more to do. So, y'all have a good day.